circles. And this is a really, really powerful tactic that we learned from a hero of ours named Ben Franklin. In colonial America, he's the foremost author, statesman, inventor. He was responsible for inventions from bifocals to mapping the Gulf Stream to the first public libraries, the first fire departments, the Continental Congress, for crying out loud. The guy did it all. I highlighted swim paddles there. Shout out to Perry, because Perry's a swimmer. I got you. But I mean, you think about the diversity of outputs that Franklin was responsible for. What do you attribute it to? One of the things that really struck me as I read a biography of his a while back is that every single week for 30 years, he met with a group of people that he called his junto. This was a group of artisans and tradesmen. He also referred to it as a leather aprons club, but it was basically a group of people from different industries who he thought were interesting that he gathered together to share learnings on a weekly basis. And what's fascinating is he had very clear rules for engagement for the group. He had a series of questions that they were to answer. Has anyone moved to Philadelphia recently whom we ought to know? Has anyone's business succeeded unexpectedly, and what are the reasons? Is there any new discovery in science that we ought to share with one another? Has anyone's name fallen into disrepute, and what can we learn from it? These are questions that they ask one another. They had like 24 or 25 questions that they covered every week. But for 30 years, he made a routine habit of meeting with people outside of his organization. And when we think about collaborators, almost de facto, most of us think about people inside our team, inside our company. And what we'd say is, as we look across history, the history of invention and innovation, folks who are wildly successful are thoughtful about cultivating networks beyond their organization as well. And there's a lot of research on this. One of our favorite researchers is a psychologist at Dartmouth named Kevin Dunbar. And he's done a lot of research in lab environments and how researchers come up with scientific breakthroughs. And one of the very simple takeaways from Dunbar's research is discoveries aren't made under the microscope. They're made at the conference table. They're made as researchers come together and talk about what's not working, or ask each other questions, or kick around ideas. And one of the interesting things, I was reading one of his old papers the other day, and I love this quote we put here on the slide. He witnessed a breakthrough. He was studying 4 science labs in parallel, and he witnessed a breakthrough, and he had hours and hours of footage and things like that. And when he could dissect the breakthrough perfectly. He actually knew exactly what happened in the chain of logic that led there. It was a series of analogies and references to other industries, et cetera. It's really fantastic. But one thing that's amazing is the team had no idea how they got the breakthrough. And you ask them a week later, a month later, 9 months later, they have no idea. But the point is, they position themselves in such a way that they increase their likelihood of stumbling upon a breakthrough, even if they don't know how they got there. And to us, that's where this idea of the junto is really powerful, is making a decision to meet with folks outside of my direct sphere of work, not because I know that I'll be able to perfectly trace it, but because I know that diverse inputs are going to affect my thinking in ways that I can't even predict. And what's fascinating is 16 years after Franklin started the junto in Philadelphia, he ended up starting an intercontinental junto called the American Philosophical Society. And it was based on some of the same principles as the junto was. But what they did is they would mail one another letters or pamphlets 4 times a year, and they would rotate. And you can see here, these are just a few of the guidelines, right? But I love that highlighted part at the end. All philosophical experiments that let light into the nature of things. They were voracious for learning and eager to share with one another. And the point is, this was a practice. If you think about the lifetime of invention and creativity, one of the key levers that Franklin leveraged was this notion of radically diverse perspectives, routinely gathering with them to share the things that were noteworthy and interesting to them, having a few rules of engagement, et cetera. You see here, there's a handful of, I'm somewhat obsessed with this idea of Adjunct and Ben Franklin in general. So I've written a few blog posts about him. You can check them out if you want. It's only for those who want to go deep down the rabbit hole of nerddom, but join me there. The water's warm. I'm in a woolen wetsuit and it feels great.